I try to keep it out of the stank territory, but throw a little stank in there if you do it too soon. You're like, I'm ready to apologize now. Listen, here's why I did it and why you caused it.
Okay, so let's record the intro now.
So what did Milkless? Because I think we start with the name.
Two dads, we love our kids, but then we also need them to know that we're like pretty cool and it's not like a wimpy podcast. So, hey, hey, Milkless.
Hey, welcome. Hey,
Milkless. Call the audience, Milkless. What's up, Milkless? Matt and Max coming at you.
What if that's it? That's our first take. Hey, so this is part 2 of a really great conversation we had with our good friend Matt Rose. I'd like to say, if you didn't listen to part 1, you don't have to, but it's just going to seem like we're talking about a haircut for a real long time that we set up in the first one. So go get them. If you're coming from episode 1, welcome back.
I'm also talking about getting from like non-compliance to compliance and having like a copacetic household, which I'd say we've established. And it's like I can put all 3 kids to bed by myself in 40 minutes, let's say. But I will still do constant corrections that I don't know if they're the most helpful or nice. Like, so I do this thing talking at bedtime now. We talk for like 10 to 15 minutes instead of reading books. So he's all obsessed with that and he loves it. And I love it too. And then he'll be, every once in a while, he was like, okay, we got to go. He's like, no, don't go. And then he gets all mad or sad. And it's the same thing when I screamed at him in the car because we already are in this good bedtime. They're compliant. They're going to bed. It's an amazing experience. Again, it's the same shit for me. Now I'm realizing I was telling the same story. Dude, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, don't.
I know. I gave you exactly what you wanted.
Don't make me feel bad for being so fun that you don't want me to leave.
Yeah.
And then
that's right.
And then he kind of like puts his head in his pillow like he's going to cry. I apologize, blah, blah, blah. So then I started thinking about that. Like, he's probably going to say that. And he did it the next night. Next night, I did the same thing. I'm like, dude, what the hell? I'm being a good dad. I'm being fun. Like, stop, or I'll stop doing talking. Next night, I'm like, God, that was just, again, shitty.
I'll stop talking to you. I will stop talking to you.
No, I said that.
You like talking to me? You like it? You want that to keep going? You got the fuck to sleep.
Then don't ask for it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Like I use scary Batman voice all the time. But then that third night, I just said, hey, dude, listen, can I explain? Daddy really loves you and blah, blah. Just an exercise in empathy. Told him my whole thing, how I'm feeling. I'm super tired. I got to go to sleep. I want to end on a good note with you. And I love talking so much. And when you say stuff like that, it makes me like wonder, like, should I do talking tomorrow night? But I want to do talking tomorrow night. So is there any way that when we finish talking tonight, you can let me go? I'm going to talk 10 to 15 minutes. Just let me go.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, 100%. And it was like, okay, that was like 3 weeks ago.
I think that's great, describing it that way. I wanted to, so it's interesting that Maxie, sometimes you use the word compliance and I have this like cringe every time.
Knee-jerk, visceral cringe.
Yeah. But I don't
have as big a vocabulary, so help me.
No. That's
amazing one.
That's actually not, I'm
kidding.
Bringing it up to break balls. It's funny because like there's always this balance between like boundaries and rules and how much you hold to rules. And then there's also like the chaos that is children and like trying to, meet them where they're at and all that other shit. And you do like think about like the structures and the rules in your house, but they work really well and they're enforced really kindly. And maybe it's not even that different in practice. You just think about it a little bit differently.
Yeah. And the word compliant, every time I say it, it's cringy. So I'd appreciate the two of you who have quadrupled my vocabulary to help me. Basically, what I'm looking for is like, they're just working the game plan. And I will adapt the game plan all the fucking time.
Yeah.
You guys want to change something? It's like,
yeah,
we eat at the dinner table, blah, blah, blah. And I'm constantly making new rules. You're not allowed to get up. But then it's like, oh, they wouldn't finish their plate. It's more important for them to finish the plate and possibly be a little bit like a wild child savage.
Yeah.
So we make running bites. You're allowed to run around the table, come back and get another bite for your last like 4 bites. Cool. Yeah. And then like the 6 and 8 year old are like, can we do that now? I'm like, sorry, new rule. Running bites are only for 4-year-olds. You've aged out of running bites. And it's like, that's the new rule.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh, it's not working. Today we're having running bites. And it's like, make a new rule.
Yeah.
But then that's the rule. It's like,
that's interesting.
It's a fluid thing, but it's like,
you just try to codify what works best.
Yeah.
And then everybody knows. what the expectation is.
But like bedtime is fucking bedtime. It used to be 7 and we held that militantly until shit started to go fucking haywire.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, now it's 7:30. And then we had 3 kids. It's like lax. Now it's like 8:30.
Yeah.
But like 9 is unacceptable.
I had two wonderings. One, to what extent are your kids involved in the making of the rules or the brainstorming of the rules? The other one is like, I was thinking about this way back when you were talking about the haircut too, right? Hair in the eyes, but also 9 o'clock bedtime is another example. What is ultimately at stake here? Like when you put the flag in the ground, like why? Why there? I think about it a lot with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I picking this thing to fight about? Is it just a battle of wills, right? Am I just looking for the fight? Am I just trying to establish myself? Or is there actually something legit here about hair in the eyes or not past 9 o'clock? I mean, that one seems maybe a little easier, right? You know, when your kids wake up, you know that you want them to get a certain number of hours. But so maybe the hair is a better example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's just like, otherwise I think that there's chaos and I don't, it's just how we've always done it, you know? Like it's similar to like when people ask like how we grew the software company. I have one style of sales that I'm really good at. So if people want to do that, I'll kill it. But I always tell everybody like, there's probably like 20 different ways you can actually structure the sales team. It's the one I know.
Yeah.
And the one I know is roughly authoritative. It's also a lot of the data suggests that like authoritative kids have like less tantrums, more well-adjusted as they grow up. I feel like people want structure, you know, and something that Matt Naylor says a lot is like kids are really bad long-term planners.
The worst.
So to your second question, Matt Rose, is like, I do actually let them get in on it. Like, for example, to use the hair thing, it's so stupid. Like, I really don't care. But like we said, look, you can have long hair that's like down past your eyes. And they didn't want to grow out long hair, just long bangs. So like stylistically.
So interesting too. Like, what the fuck? Yeah. Why that?
I don't know. But I'm like,
where did that come from?
Your biggest explosion in 6 months was about bangs.
So I'm like, let's get gel. So I got each of them gel in their rooms. We try to do it every day to get and then it was every day I'm like nagging about putting the gel in so that we can, we're also biking to school. And when you put a helmet on and you don't have your hair out of your face, it's like actually dangerous. And I'm like, well, then you can't bike to school. And then I'm like, what are we even talking about here?
Yeah. I have put some rules in place because I know that if I don't put them in place, that it will be impossible for us to not end up in a fight. That's why I had just always stayed with my daughter until she was asleep. But then she was just staying up later and later and later. And I was like, I can't not fight with you. Max had always been like with his kids, the thing where he'd come back every 10 minutes. He'd leave them when they were still awake, but he'd come back every 10 minutes. And so it was this time when she didn't really want me to start leaving. She didn't want me to do the 10-minute thing. She still doesn't love it. She'd rather me be there. But I was just like, look, I know this isn't ideal for you, but it's more ideal than at like 9:07 p.m. being like, how are you not asleep? Which is like where I'm going to end up if I don't, put this rule in place.
Yeah.
So it's weird because it feels selfish, but it's also like, I got to know how good I am at this and when I'm going to fuck it up.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because it's not about, my question isn't so much about like, why do we make boundaries at all? Or why do we set limits at all? But like, why the particular ones that we choose? But I think that gets to it. Sometimes it's because we earnestly think we know what's good for the kid. You're going to get in a bike accident if you fucking go biking with a helmet on and hair in your face. And sometimes it's for us, right? Like, I know my own limit here. I might not be able to keep cool if I don't set this boundary around or this practice around way of doing things for bedtime.
And here's the thing. I know we're like, it's weird to we might have to cut the whole hair thing because it's so fucking stupid, but like,
it's the best.
But sometimes it's like that.
The whole episode hinges on the hair thing.
Well, I know, because here's the thing. I was like, okay, I'll support you and I will be your advocate for the long hair. That goes to halfway to the bridge of your nose.
Yeah.
But let's get the gel thing going, because it's like, otherwise, are you going to let the kid be a cousin it? You know what I mean?
Well, why not, Max? Like, why the fuck not? Just let him be it. Like, really, this is a real interesting one for me, because I find myself, just as a parent, like, whatever. There's no judgment here. You make whatever the fucking choice you want. Yeah. But this feeling of like, really? And also, let me come hard for a second. Like, are you really an advocate? Are you really an advocate for your kid in this case? Like, or are you, because you're not. You're giving them what they want only on your terms, right?
Right, because I'm also saying, like, this is how you grow your hair out.
Yeah.
Is you keep it out of your face.
That's right. And if you want to describe it that way, or you want to describe it as, I'm teaching my kid how to grow their hair, that's fine. But I wonder about this, like, language of, I am taking their side. Not totally, right? It's not, you're not giving them exactly what they want.
Not totally. Well, because they want the hair out of their face, but they just like forget and don't notice it.
Really?
I think so. It's kind of like
I would.
No, there's a good analogy in here. It's like, okay, if you want to get a dog, getting a dog, you got to like help take care of it or something. You want to get a hamster, you got to do this.
Having this conversations
in our house, at least, if you want to grow your hair out long, you got to just like keep it out of your face, unless it's stylistically meant to like cover an eye, like the daughter in The Incredibles. Then if it isn't, it just looks like horrible.
Yeah.
And this is maybe a little bit keeping up with the Joneses, or, you don't want your teacher to think that you're not caring for your child. Like, it's just not, that's not like, it's not that you can't have long hair in my house.
Yeah.
I'll help you grow that hair long.
Yeah.
But there's things you need to do.
Care and maintenance of the hair.
To get it.
Sure.
So
it's legit.
I think, Rideau, you're right. Sometimes it's a good boundary that you think is best for your kids. Sometimes it's a boundary you really feel like you need for yourself. And sometimes it's some bullshit that's just important to you because it is.
Yeah, that's fine. It's been a real exercise. I've been struck again and again by how well she knows herself. And I mean, also, she wants to do all sorts of stupid shit that we don't allow. But there is like a depth of self-knowledge, especially around like her emotional states, that's like, I mean, she's better at knowing her own feelings than I am at knowing mine at fucking almost 40. And so it's been, especially the last couple of years, like coming to trust her more and more has been like a real learning. Yeah. I don't know. It's hard as hell. Yeah. And I worry about trusting too much and then she makes a bad choice. Another version of this, we were talking about when emotions get real big, wondering about how good it is to show your young child your own feelings, either show them or tell them. Like I knew if my parents were displeased with me, but I didn't know the nuances of like them being sad or upset or angry and like the texture of that. And like, we share that more explicitly with our daughter. And I wonder sometimes, part of me thinks it's good. And another part thinks like developmentally, it's not appropriate.
Is that scary for the kid?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like she's not able to really process what it means.
Something we always say is like, it's definitely in the middle. There's not one extreme where like, I'm sure there's some people who are like, show them everything. And other people who are like, they're not ready for anything. One thing that I'd say you should probably never show is your fear of flying. Because I know people where adults have, I'm not going to name them. They know who they are, listening, possibly, who got really scared during turbulence around young children. And all of the children in that family were terrified of flying their entire lives. So like, that's when it's like, suck it up, bitch. Like, pretend you're not afraid of the turbulence for your kid's sake. Yeah. If they ask me like, are you scared? Couldn't this plane crash? The answer is like, no.
This is flat no.
It's never happened in the history of the universe.
No.
Hell no.
Are you scared of this turbulence? We just dropped 150 feet. Absolutely not. It's amazingly fun.
It's a roller coaster ride.
Even if I'm like sweating profusely.
Yeah.
All three of our kids love flying. I'm massive turbulence. My wife's got a fucking bag. They're like, what are you doing? She's like, just playing a game. Pretending it's popcorn.
Popcorn game.
Do not let your kids know you're scared of flying.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, there are some things that, I've wondered about sharing with my daughter, and some things that I've really tried not to, like certain kinds of stress that I don't want her to have to feel yet. And I do think there's this other interesting like balance to be had. So Rodovin, you were describing how well your daughter feels like she knows herself, that she knows herself better than anybody else. And I think there's this other tension in parenting between trying to really let a kid be who they are and let that be okay. Because like as a parent, you have so much power to make a way that a kid is not feel okay to them. And that's like pretty scary. But then there's this other school of thought that part of your job as a parent is to like make your kids the kind of people that can go out and get along well with others and like follow a plan and be a good part of a team, because those things make you a lot happier. It's like you're socializing them a little bit. You're trying to teach them how to be around other folks.
Yeah. I find my immediate reaction is like, if some of that means like knowing how to play well with others, like I'm not particularly worried about that with my daughter based on what I know of her, but also there's a gendered thing here. I think if anything, like I want her to be a strong, outspoken female, because there are going to be a lot of worldly forces that try to tamp that down. Like I see in her already like various caregiving inclinations that are beautiful. And also my mind is like, holy shit, like this is also a traditionally gendered thing right here.
Mm-hmm.
Caring a lot about what other people think, managing other people's feelings, holding them for those people. Like she does all these things already. And that could just be, that's who she is. It could be me and my wife model those behaviors. I am always struck by like how early various gendered differences start to set in. Like once they start going to school, it felt like to me anyway.
That's interesting.
So I don't worry about that part
Yeah.
as much. I do worry more about her being herself and not being afraid to show that.
I think that's where the bulk of my worry lies too. I worry that we tamp down on particularly my oldest too much. And I think a big part of that, you're right. It's funny. It's like, I would kind of want her fiery.
Yeah.
Some of the things that she does, if she were a boy, I might be like, rein it in, bro.
Yeah.
But like, because she's a girl, I'm like, yeah, go get him.
Yeah. My wife and I, we often say like, this is going to serve her so well when she's an adult.
Yeah. It's a little tough these days. Yeah. So Maxie, we wrote this book together, Violet Archer, In the Case of the Purple Martin. I wrote it. You came in and illustrated it, but I kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on the illustrations because it is kind of like a unique approach to it.
Yeah, so I know you wanted illustrations on every page, full color, high fidelity. And we started looking into it. And right out of the gate, there was like a couple ones that I knew were going to be really difficult, like kind of almost like action scenes. Mm-hmm. So I started kind of thinking how we're going to get those done. I probably spent a few hundred hours trying to get those scenes to be made.
Created some real horrific AI hallucinations along the way, I have to say.
Yeah,
Nightmare fuel.
Anyone who's never played with AI, it's wild. But what we ended up settling on, and you said it, that constraints breed creativity. It's basically a bunch of little Polaroids that she takes, and they're like her clues. It actually got worked into the story where she's taking pictures of things along the way.
Like for the case files, yeah.
Yeah, case files, added in all these little clues. So now you never know like which illustration or which one of her photos is a clue, which one could be a red herring. I don't know. I think it's a really cool motif. And
it came out great. What I love about it, Max, is that like it makes the entire experience of the story visually as from her perspective, which is also the way the book is written. So you see the world through her eyes. They came out, I'm so impressed, man. They came out great.
Love it. So guys, check the podcast description for a link to buy the book or search Violet Archer on Amazon and buy it there.
Cheers.
One thing was the fear, like whether your kid is scared of you. And I know you guys have talked about this a few times, just like the way in which dads can be scarier to their kids. I think there was at one point, and maybe you had a guest on the show who said like, I want my kid to be scared of me. Like, right, I want to see the fear in their eyes. Yeah. Which I thought was so interesting, man. Like, there was a long time. We talked about it tonight. My daughter and I was asking her some questions about things that she remembered, which was also interesting. Just like what sort of things that I remember that she doesn't. Uh-huh. There was a long period of time where she said she was scared, and that would also send us into spirals. We'd start having, some friction. And if she got any sense that I was upset, it would like trigger her. I don't know. I don't love that language, but like she'd go down this little spiral of like, daddy's upset with me and now I'm scared. And it was impossible to unpack what that meant for her. Mm-hmm. Like, are you scared that I'm going to physically hurt you? I don't even know what else the scared is, like that I don't love you. And she couldn't explain it. But that language happened a lot. Yeah. Which was really painful and really hard and made me feel terrible about all those times that I had like overreacted. And I asked her if she remembered. Well, I put it this way, actually. I asked her, has mom or dad ever spanked you? And she said, no. But actually, about 2 years ago, I think in the nighttime, some point of friction, I don't know, it started to spiral. Me and my wife both fed it in small ways to start, that little bit of exasperation that then creeps in and then it just builds. Mm-hmm. And it got to a part where she was like pulling on my wife's arm. My wife asked her to stop. She's thrown at her back several times. And so it was like, I'm worried that you're going to hurt my back. So please, I need you to stop. And that particular thing, like this thought that my daughter might hurt my wife, like sent me to a whole other orbit of anger and rage. And eventually my wife extracted herself and, in my recollection, went upstairs, and my daughter is now just crying on the stairs. And I like huff and puff out there, like turbo walk, lift her up and give her one swat on the butt, one spank. It was like an out of body experience. Like, I don't feel like I decided to do it. It just like was happening. Mm-hmm. And then I don't really remember what happened afterwards. Like, I don't know I sort of remember that at the time, like it was almost as if this didn't have an effect on her.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how we like ended that situation and repaired things. At first, she had no recollection of it. My wife has a very different memory of the entire experience. And after she told her version, my daughter was like, I think my memory is more closer to yours, Mom. So just like fascinating that she didn't remember, horrifying that it happened to me personally. I do remember like debriefing this afterward with my wife, who was like extremely upset. Understandably, I was upset. I felt terrible.
Yeah.
But also so interesting to me that like my daughter didn't remember it. I don't even know what to make of that. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know how to square that with it made me wonder about other things that like I had done that had been scary or sort of traumatic that she might also not remember. And yet there was this long stretch of time where she would say like, I'm scared. I'm scared of Dad.
Yeah.
I
went through a phase of scared of Dad too. And I feel like I've had my versions of those moments, like when I was holding a kid and got my beard pulled and squeezed too hard. Like, it's just like,
yeah.
And it is that thing where it's like, man, that happened before I even felt like I made a choice. It had already happened. I think like ultimately when my daughter was scared, what she was scared of was that like when I get that angry, there's violence in it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I've never really done anything to hurt her, but I've like slapped a wall before. She's seen me grit my teeth before. It's like your body just does this like fucking thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Max, like when you slam the table, it's like, it's a gorilla thing.
I've definitely like hit their bed or something close to them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost like in a prison, someone like punches the wall next to somebody's head and got in their face and showed my teeth like, Shuma! Like, which is probably worse than the spank you did. It's a wild place. I mean, and the fact that you don't remember it really is it's like you can just get taken to a place that is very primal. For me, I think it happens in a perfect storm of like, usually there's something going on with your child. So they're kind of acting a little different. Oh, our kid had a sore throat and they didn't know how to express that. So they were being like extra. I was exhausted. New thing comes into work. It's like a perfect storm. And then on top of it, you just like get into some sort of a back and forth where like, I got to win this one or something. Mm-hmm. And then that's where it's hard to see those things coming because it's like, I didn't realize I was capable of that.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm capable of being much more of a shithead than I thought I was.
Yeah.
But only to my favorite people.
That's right. It always works that way. I like the phrase though, that your kid sees the violence in it. That feels right to me. It's funny that we hadn't used the word violence yet, but I think that feels like pretty right actually.
Yeah.
And helps explain some of the fear, I think.
Yeah.
Like it's not just whether it's physical acts or, I mean, even things like, gritting your teeth.
Yeah, dude.
Posture, voice.
Yeah.
There is violence that's conveyed in that. Mm-hmm. And maybe they do wonder, like, could I be the target of it?
Yeah.
Well, there's got to be something biological in there.
Yeah.
Like if you imagined an animal 3 times your size that made a bluff charge on your ass.
It showed you its teeth up close.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Basically did as much to show you how mad they were and scary they were. It's just like, we know when there's a bigger animal.
Yeah.
It's basically just letting you know, like, I could crush you.
Yeah.
And even if it's not intended that way, it's something visceral comes out.
On some level, it is intended that way, right? And so they receive it on the same level in that way. It's like an ape telling another ape, like, I'm bigger than you.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck.
It's like we're trying to train this out of us, which is a good thing. But then we also still have the rest of the ape still in there. Mm-hmm. We just developed language over the last, 20,000 years or something?
Is that right? Is that recent?
50,000 years? I don't know. I mean, like history didn't start until maybe 50,000 years ago.
Well, yeah, and we've been raising kids in single family homes for like a couple hundred years.
A couple hundred? Yeah, I don't know.
100? Yeah. Still not in a lot of parts of the world.
And like hitting is only unacceptable in the last 50, 70 years.
Yeah.
That's true.
Generation? I don't know. Did either of any of your parents spank you or no?
I got spanked once, but it was mostly or almost entirely a non-spanking.
I remember it.
Yeah.
I got spanked one time, and it's a strange memory because I remember being very afraid. But then I remember my mom crying and hitting me so softly. And even as I was that young, I remember thinking like, that's it? That's fine. And then she never did it again. She felt so bad. So it's weird. There's like a trauma and a catharsis all in one memory.
Explains a lot, Matt.
Yeah. So does your daughter still tell you she's scared of you?
She said tonight when asked, it was like a yes and no. The answer right out of the gate was yes. And then when she explained what that fear was, it was pretty clear to me that it was different than what she used to say. But it was like she didn't immediately remember that 2, 3, 4 years ago, like she used to talk about it differently. And then when I shared with her how she used to say it, what I thought it meant, she was like, yeah, I don't feel that way anymore. And she said explicitly, like, I'm not scared that you'll hurt me.
Yeah.
It's like I'm scared you will be upset, which is this forward-looking thing, which was different than like in the moment of anger, I'm scared at how you're acting.
Yeah.
I've been working on that. So like part of it was like, thank fucking God.
Yeah.
That I've seemed to move the needle somewhat on that issue.
Hey, good work.
Yeah, good
and
for
kids,
you, man.
dude, kids are really capable. Nothing is set and can't ever be fixed. You know, it's like it gets harder and harder to fix it the older they get, but you can't you change that.
Right.
That's like she's like has a different experience of her dad now. That's exceptional.
And also, like, if you fuck it up, but then like have that repair after, that also can be cathartic. I mean, if a child never sees anger once in their entire life, then they honestly, they don't know how to apologize if they overdo it. And I think that's a very important lesson as well. I don't think anger can be the plan, but if it happens, it's all about like, you now have an opportunity. I'm so sorry. I totally like botched that. But like, I also want to explain why that happened. And I lost control.
Yeah.
And I try to keep it out of the stank territory, but you know, throw a little stank in there if you do it too soon. You're like, I'm ready to apologize now. Listen, here's why I did it and why you caused it. Like that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But if you wait long enough.
I'm really sorry, guys. Listen, got a few things to say. Yeah. Fucking hell. Yeah. Thanks for bringing the just level of candor that you did. I think there's probably not that many parents other than our friend Sam Stolper who don't have a story pretty similar to that one.
Yeah.
But God, it's fucked because it's like, it's so hard and it's all of us at some point or almost all of us at some point, but it's also, it's not okay.
Yeah.
Like it can't be okay with us that that's happening.
Yeah. The spanking story is when I ran past the wife. You two are the only folks outside our family that know that story now. And if you keep it in, you know, however many people are going to listen
Just a couple thousand more.
Yeah. All right, cool. Oh yeah. This was fun, guys. I appreciate you both.
Thanks so much, man. This was great.
Brought to you by Violet Archer.